All right, we are recording. Welcome in. This is going to be a quick little banger edition of ACC Baseball Etc. presented by Pitch Logic. Pitch Logic is the system used by players, coaches, scouts, and instructors at all levels of play, from youth leagues to the big leagues. The easy-to-use and affordable technology makes the platform accessible to every player at every level. All the metrics and features used at the highest level. See pitchlogic.com for more information. I'm Daron Vaught. For those listening and not watching on YouTube, Scott Forbes is on the other screen. Coach, that's big time, right? We've come a long way since last time you were here. We got reads and everything, like bona fide sponsors. We're a real show.
Daron, man, y'all are rolling. Awesome.
So appreciate the time. I know it's been a busy fall for you, especially with some back and forth between your own team and the World Series, which is where I want to start. You were checking out Zac Gallen pitching in that setting, the biggest setting in the sport, which is really, really cool. You're going into year 4 as a head coach. This will be what, 23 years on staff at Carolina, something like that?
I don't even know. Is that bad?
At some point,
when you love what you're doing and you love where you are, you don't keep up with it, you know?
Yeah, I get that. I can appreciate that. Well, I say that. First, I'm just going to get you to generally describe the experience, but I do want to tap into Zac Gallen as a younger man, if we can do that. So we'll start with just going to see him pitch in the World Series as someone who coached him. A pretty cool experience, I would have to imagine.
Unbelievable. Surreal that when you're around somebody, when they're in college and they're just kids, to watch them reach their dream of not just making it to the big leagues, but Zac Gallen started the All-Star game and he's starting game 1 of the World Series and he's still extremely young. But, we took a great group. Coach Fox was able to go. Coach Jackson, who coached here at the time, played a huge role in recruiting Zac Gallen while he was here. Coach Jackson, now the head coach at Liberty. Mr. Bryson, one of our biggest supporters, if not our biggest supporter, he is our biggest supporter, was able to come with us, played at North Carolina, has helped us get our program to where it is. And then some others, John Montgomery, the head of our Rams club. My dad was actually able to go with us. So it was a great group. We had a blast. Obviously, you can imagine the ballpark is unbelievable. Corey Seager, who plays for the Rangers, his older brother Kyle played for us. So we just made the most of it. We enjoyed the day. And then we got to see Zach's family. We got to see a lot of his teammates. Some of them even drove to Texas. Zac gave them tickets. So it was really, really neat.
That's awesome.
And a great game, except for, Corey having to hit the home run to tie the game and take the lead. I was giving Kyle a hard time. I was like, at least let Zac win the game,
Yeah, come on. Can't you work some brother to brother magic there? We gotta, yeah. I know this because Mike Fox was at Michael Bush's big league debut not that long ago. You guys have had a lot of players reach that next step in their careers lately. And I think it's really cool that you guys do such a good job of trying to be there for them in those moments. It got me thinking, talking about Zac. I heard Runes on the Sunday Conversation show that he does where he talks to coaches on Sundays. I texted him after I was catching up on an older episode. And I think he was talking to Matt Hobbs at Arkansas about Kevin Kopps. And it turned into, or it stemmed from a question that Runes asked. And he said, who's a player that changed you as a coach? And I texted him and was like, I'm stowing that one away. That's a great question.
Yes.
I consider you to be one of the more thoughtful guys that I talk to on a regular basis about ACC baseball and baseball at large. So I consider it a good question for you and for this conversation too, especially given what I alluded to, like 20-something years on staff at Carolina, entering your 4th as a head coach, where I know we've talked about in the past few years, you've experienced some growth in yourself in that way as a head coach. for the first time. So maybe it comes from that window. Maybe it stems from your time as an assistant. But who comes to mind when I ask who's a player who changed you?
That's a loaded question, because so many players, really, the older you get and the more mature you get as a coach, you realize that they're working through you. As you know, they change you as much as hopefully you change them. It's the neatest thing about coaching. If you put your ego aside and you pay attention to these guys, they can really teach us a lot. Zac would definitely be in that. Zac showed me a guy like Zac Gallen, who unfortunately we didn't get to Omaha, so we feel like we let him down in that category as coaches. Showed us, though, like, hey, you can have a huge impact on your team, even though we didn't make it to Omaha, because those years after he left, those young guys that played with him, and Kyle Datras and Logan Warmoth and Brandon Riley and Cody Roberts, and those guys got us back to Omaha when we hadn't been in a while. But Zac taught them, the Carolina way and our standards and our culture. So it taught me, like, hey, every career may not play out like you want it to from the wins and losses standpoint, but if you do things the right way, like Zac did, you can still be the definition of an ultimate leader. You don't have to get 3 wins in Omaha necessarily like Alex White did. But so many players have really changed me, but I would say one that really sticks out to me recently is Angel Zarate, a player that I think as coaches we all kind of thought, man, I just don't think he's going to ever play here. And for him to basically say, I am going to play here, and really pay attention to why he was able to make that happen. Number one, he stuck with it. Number two, we didn't, make him leave, thank goodness, because we do have a roster limit. And just the fact that you can work your way, you've got a little bit of talent and you've got, high character and you've got big time discipline and work ethic, you can find a way to get on the field at a place even like a UNC. But man, there aren't just one, there aren't just two. As far as changing so many things, you look at my first year here, that group of pitchers of Robert Woodard, Andrew Kerrigan, Andrew Miller, Daniel Bard, Rob Wooten, Adam Warren, the whole group, to take in a first-year pitching coach who really wasn't a pitching coach. I wasn't a pitching coach. I'd never been a pitching coach in my life. I was scared to death, and I roll in here, and Andrew Miller's a junior, and Daniel Bard's a junior, and Robert Woodard's a junior. So you're like, okay, I better not screw this up. But those guys didn't look at me like that, and they are the reason that I'm here, honestly, because you're that high profile and you decide to take someone in and believe in what they're doing and make it work. And then all of a sudden you're in Omaha and you're playing for the national championship. It really made me realize that you have to lean on your players a lot as well.
Yeah.
But there's one every year probably that changes you as a coach.
Well, that's the hope, right? I would hope that you feel like you're changing or improving or getting better in at least some small specific way every year, much less in a greater sort of general sense, right? That's
every day. If we're not, we're missing the boat, right? Like, every day is that unique opportunity to find a way to get better. And that's the ultimate chase in life, as we talk to our guys about, trying to improve in some way, shape, or form every single day, every day when you wake up. And there's more gratification when you do it on the days that you may not feel like doing it, whatever that may be, So it's just a neat thing that I'm constantly in awe of how talented these kids are, because I played at a junior college and played at North Carolina Wesleyan. It's not that we weren't talent, but these are the top of the top, and they are just unbelievably talented, and that's neat to be around every day.
Yeah.
Because there might be another Zac Gallen, and might be another Kyle Seager, Dustin. They're every year you're like, hey, Vance Honeycutt walks in here 2 years ago, and he's just a scrawny shortstop from down the road that was a good quarterback, and now he's one of the top players in the country. So that's the neatest thing about what we do.
Yeah. I want to circle back on Zac. I hate to bring this series up, Coach, but BC at North Carolina last year.
That's a bad series. I appreciate that.
Sorry.
That
was
series
talking
single-handedly knocked us out of hosting.
Yeah, no, it did. It did. That is not lost on me when I bring this up. So, I've got good reason. I was talking to then BC coach Mike Gambino, and it was, if you remember that weekend, we had a couple of days where we were waiting out some rain. So
Yep.
I was on the TV stream call for those. And I remember coming down to field level, and I was just kind of talking to Mike during one of the delays, and it happened to be Zac Gallen bobblehead day. So we were sort of looking up, and the people who were there and sticking it out through the rain had their Zac bobbleheads. And he told me this story about Zac Gallen and him trying to recruit Zac. But I think, if you know the story of Zac Gallen, you know that he grew up this massive North Carolina fan. He wears 23 now for Michael Jordan. Yeah. It's just like it's part of his ethos or what, it's within him. Right.
Oh yeah.
So, Gambino told the story. And as he recalled, he was like, man, I was the first in on him. He had nothing doing offers wise. He said, he wasn't quite there for North Carolina to be like really salivating at him as a recruit at that point, because it was pretty early on. I think he might have mentioned that Zac was 15 or 16 or whatever. Yeah. And he said, I offered him on the spot, offered him BC full ride on the spot, said, you're going to come here, you're going to be a star. And Zac was like, nah, man, I'm waiting on North Carolina. And like Gambino was like, no, I visited his home, and he's got a poster of Michael Jordan, like North Carolina stuff everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So just knowing that you were on staff, and I know you said Scott had a lot to do with his recruitment. What do you recall about sort of the Zac Gallen personal journey in, wanting to be wanted by North Carolina and then ultimately it panning out?
I mean, we almost screwed it up because we almost waited too late to really make that offer, and he took another jump. So then the final three are us, LSU, and Oklahoma State. And Zac will tell you he was coming to North Carolina the whole time. And I'm like, well, I wish you would have told us that.
You're right.
We had to work. I mean, home visits, getting donors to take us on their plane up there to see them. Me, Coach Fox, Coach Jackson on the phone. So I busted Zac's chops all the time. I was like, dude, man, you made us work really hard probably when we didn't even have to. But he wanted to, I think he had good guidance from his mom and dad. Hey, let's take these other visits because you don't know until you know. You need to look at a couple other schools. And, once he committed, it was a big deal for us. In his class, you look back on it, man, it was really good. And the next year's class, we just got decimated in the draft, which had a lot to do with, not getting Zac to Omaha, because that can happen sometime. But man, the recruiting was the one thing about Zac is he always threw strikes. He always won games. He was just 83, 85, 84, 86, 86, 88. And then boom, he had another jump. So much that we thought, okay, is this kid going to sign out of high school? But he didn't. He came here and he worked his tail off and he got better every year. And then when he left here, he was, third round pick, I believe, 89, 92. And I thought to myself, okay, there's another jump. This guy's a big leaguer. I mean, he's just what he's going to be. He had it written all over him. And he came back here and was throwing on our field with the, I think the track man just started and all that stuff. And his numbers, I was like, how is this guy not in the big leagues? This is when he had been mowing in AAA.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that same year he got the call up. So, Lord willing, hopefully we were saying, hey, this kid stays healthy. He's got a chance to be one of those special major leaguers.
Yeah. Let's talk about your current version of the Tar Heels. You guys are done with fall ball now. I heard good things. Unfortunately, was not able to pop over there. It's a busy time of year.
No doubt.
But I did talk to people who sort of popped in and out, right? This D1 baseball affiliation has its perks. And then I can reach out to people who have seen you guys. And there are a lot of us, as I say us now, as part of the D1 family, using my air quotes.
And how cool is that? Like, seriously, like the D1 is where it is now for baseball.
Yeah.
The coverage we get, it's a big credit to how y'all are doing things. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And it's more a credit to, the guys like Kendall Rogers and Aaron Fitt who have been out here doing it, as opposed to, Danny and me start up this show at the beginning of last season, really just to have something to do. And
yeah.
It's good on them though, because we sort of did it because they started their SEC specific vertical, and we were like, okay, well, we gotta stick up for the ACC. And,
100%.
They followed suit, and they were like, you know what? Come along for the journey.
That's awesome.
We're going to embrace the ACC too. So credit to those guys. We're loving it. But with this team, fall ball behind you, and now it's just sort of that anxious waiting period before mid-February, and before you know it, we'll be playing games. What excites you most about the group that you've got?
Man, obviously you're excited if you feel like you're talented. So let's just call a spade a spade. The more talented you are and the better players you have, the better coaches you are. And I feel really good about where we are talent wise. But there's a lot more to it than talent. You have to have competitiveness. You got to have leadership. You got to have some guys that lead. But the group has been awesome. We brought in a mix. Our recruiting class was ranked high, but I'm always one of those that says you need to re-rank it, because you don't really know until they're gone, the impact they're going to have. And for the first time for us, and we probably should have been a little more aggressive in the portal. But, you live and you learn. We brought in some guys that we feel like, especially some grads, some older players that we feel like can make a big, big impact for us. I feel like the depth is good, and I'm probably most excited just about the quality and depth of our pitching. That's something that's not easy to get, and you got to get lucky. You have to beat the draft to get these elite high school arms. And then you hope that if there is a pitcher that goes on the portal that is a weekend starter somewhere, that you have a chance to get in the mix and get them. And we landed a couple of those guys. So, I feel I'm excited. I feel like we're very athletic and we have some power offensively. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun trying to figure out. We got some really good returners. If you look at our team, we only lost, a couple big bats, and they were big. But we were able to land Parks Harbor out of Georgia, who had a ton of RBIs and also, performed in the SEC. That doesn't happen all the time. So I'm excited, but we got to go out there and we have to do it. But we've got some guys that decided to also come back for their fourth years in Jackson Vanderbrake, Jake Knapp, Ben Peterson, Matt Poston. Those guys help you when they decide, hey, I want one more year at UNC. I can sign professionally after this year. I can leave with my degree. You have guys like that. It helps you a ton in the locker room.
Yeah. When we've got more time to talk about it, I do want to talk to you more about Luke Stevenson, your freshman catcher.
Oh, yeah.
So he's a local guy. I actually called his state championship series in Burlington.
Oh, did you really?
Last summer. Yeah, I called that. And, just sort of knowing who he was, where he was headed, I took special stock in, okay, what was I seeing out of him? Just knowing it would probably come in handy if I keep it up here in the memory bank for later. Yeah, I think so. And again, we can talk about it maybe a little bit more when we've got some more time to dive in on some individuals. You mentioned the returners. Alberto Osuna, some big flies for you in the fall. Like Berto's back. That's a big one too.
Yeah, the hamate, we had two of those last year, and you don't want to cry a river. Nobody wants to hear it. So I tell our guys all the time, everybody has injuries, everybody deals with adversity. We had them last year more than we have in the past, but we had them. Losing Alberto for a long time with the hamate. Alvarez had the hamate, and Vance went down. But with the hamate, it takes a while. And if you're a power guy with that type of bat speed, Walker Jenkins, one of our high school commitments who didn't make it here, one of the best players in the country.
Yep.
Told me he felt like it took him 4 or 5 months to get his pure bat speed back. And that's kind of what we saw with Berto. He played through it, and he worked hard this summer to get back. He spent a lot of time working on his game and his swing, and he felt like he had unfinished business to do. He could have went ahead and graduated and started his life, but he's like, Coach, I want to play again. and that power is as real as we've ever had. So it's good to see him back, and he looks good. I felt like 2 years ago he still was kind of learning, and he hit 265 with 20 home runs and almost 70 RBIs. So if he just does that, we're good. But I do feel like he can do more. He is this high character, phenomenal teammate. So if there's a guy that I would pick, quote, to click and have his best year, it would be Alberto Osuna for sure.
Yeah. It's a group I'm excited about, and I'm sure I'll be on plenty of games and series for you guys on ACC and X and otherwise. So I'm looking forward to it. I know we've got a limited window with you today, so I'll let you go. Appreciate the time. Best of luck. If we don't talk before then, I'm sure we will.
Y'all let me know, and it's awesome. I just appreciate everything you're doing, and ACC keeps growing. We got Stanford, we got Cal. They'll be on the schedule next year, and I think a lot of exciting things. College baseball, man, it's unbelievable. It's booming, and it's going to continue to boom, in my opinion. Better crowds, better facilities, more players are going to college, which is great. And the draft is college dominant. So you're watching when you pull up a college game now, you're seeing all these. I mean, you look at Cruz; he's going to be in the big leagues in a blink. Yeah. You look at a guy like Mac Horvath for us, who could have signed the year before, came back. He's going to move up fast. So it's getting even more talented, more exciting, and people are making a bigger commitment to it, and that's really cool to see for these kids. I appreciate you having me on.
Of course, Scott, and we'll make sure Gravy's here next time.
Yeah, what's the deal, man? He's sleeping?
Skipped out on today. It's the off season. He's learning how to ice skate. His kid plays hockey. So anytime I'm not sure where he is, I see a video on Instagram, and he's just wobbling around on his skates.
Good luck with that.
He's getting there.
We've had some kids, from Minnesota, and they're good at it. But like Michael Bush, you were talking about, that kid played hockey and he was good. But man, I don't mess with ice skating. I'll be out for the year.
Yeah, right. I don't know that my quads have what's in them. I was a pretty okay athlete, but I don't know if I got that in me. That's too graceful while also trying to do other, hard movement athletic things. We'll leave that to the pros.
100%. Well, I appreciate it, my man. I'm gonna hop on this other Zoom with Inside Carolina.
There you go. Okay, shout out to the Inside
Zoom
Carolina
day.
guys. Love
you got it, buddy. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Yes, you too. Appreciate you, Scott.
See you, man.